once you get into real estate and you have some of that success, you are the best advocate to help create the long-term solution worldwide for housing affordability because you've been on both sides.
Welcome to The Path to Wealth, the show about well-being, fulfillment, and financial freedom. And I'm your host, Hennche. Welcome back to The Path to Wealth. I'm your host, Hennche. In today's episode, we have the pleasure of speaking with Bradley Bunin, the VP of Acquisitions Finance at Bicoastal. Brad's impressive career includes his experience as a mortgage banker, expert consultant at Ash Ryben Consulting, and real estate investor with a focus on multifamily investments. I'm excited to delve into Brad's inspiring career transformations and explore how he achieved success as a business owner and real estate investor. Thank you for joining us today. Kind of starting on that note, welcome to the show, Bradley.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So, first things first, where did your money and business mindset start?
Gosh, that's a big statement. Where did it start? Well, I tell people without explaining my entire life story. When I was in college, I majored in fraternity. So I was a wanderer in life, didn't know what I wanted to do. And when I realized when you graduate school without a defined specialization, as I call it, your first job tends to be in sales. So that's where I landed. And when I landed in sales, I quickly learned that when I was understanding my passions in life, that I had a knack for chasing goals and really a knack for call it the money mindset, so to speak. You what you catch is what you kill, so to speak. So I learned early on, that that was something that I had an interest in, a knack for. But in my journey of money mindset and growth, I also realized as being a salesperson working for another individual that there's only so far you can go when someone else is creating the rules and the boundaries and really your life plan of where you want to be. So that's eventually, just like many entrepreneurs, I shifted my focus on rather than betting on myself for other people, how about I bet on myself for me? And that's when everything changed.
Yeah. So, how did you know what to dial in on? So, you
hmm
had that sales background, but at the same time, you were exploring kind of where can you apply that for yourself to create equity and leverage for yourself? How did you hone in on that?
Great question. So I'm gonna give two answers, a two-part answer to this. So early in my career, when I was on a W-2, I was a loan officer in the mortgage industry. So I had a natural inclination that, hey, I could at least go back into something that I've known in the past. Although when I made that transition, I had not been in real estate for some time. And then, the second part of that was you don't know without trying. And so I'm also a big believer that there's a lot of people in the passive cash flow world or people that are interested that get caught up in the analysis paralysis world, meaning if I don't necessarily know exactly what I must do at this exact moment, then I'm not going to do any action. There's a lot of people that just don't take the
Hmm.
action part. So from my approach was I'm going to take action around things that I'm somewhat familiar with, but I'm going to just take action in general wherever that takes me.
And do you feel like moving into that uncertainty, you were just able to do that, or is there something that you needed to give you the confidence to kind of walk into the unknown? I mean, you did take action
Mhm.
based on steps you can familiarize yourself, or that to some degree are familiar, but obviously most of the future action stems from the
Yeah,
initial action. It's like the learnings as we go and as it unfolds, but it
sure.
takes a certain level of confidence, or we
Yes,
need to be a bit naive,
yes.
or what was it for you that you were able to step there?
Great question. So when I think of a person's life and their career or just things that we accomplish in life, I take a moment to reflect on what are the things that I have accomplished in life and why did that happen? And what I've learned in my life, it's when you follow a blueprint or a plan and execute a plan. So when someone thinks of sales, there's a lot of people that have never been in sales that say, I could never be a salesperson. So many people say that. But really, sales is
Yeah.
just measuring effort, meaning it's measuring actions. That's really all that it is, and following a plan that someone else created for you. And so when I think of that from sales, I think, how does that apply to everything else in life? You can apply it to going to the gym. You can apply it to being a better parent. You can apply it to eating healthier. All you do, it's like when you go to the doctor and you want a plan of being healthier, you ask the doctor for, give me a nutrition plan. If you follow the nutrition plan, will you get healthier? That's the question. If the answer is yes,
Yeah.
then you go back to, if you want to become financially independent, be a real estate investor, be an entrepreneur, be a business owner, all you do, at least for me, is I built my confidence knowing if I just find someone else's plan and I just copy their plan, I don't need to be the expert. I just need to know the plan. I will
Hmm.
get where I need to go. So it's having confidence in yourself, not confidence in the material, that you can follow someone else's plan. That is it.
But I think this is also where it
Hmm.
breaks for many people, like because the prerequisite is that they have confidence in themselves, and for many they might be sitting on the couch and they have more proof against that than for, like they're closer to eating the Cheetos than
Yes.
going to the gym. They're closer to
Yes.
turning on Netflix than maybe looking at another framework of how they can move the needle for themselves.
Oh, you're so correct about that. And I'm guilty of that too in, different areas of my life, right? I mean, listen, like,
We all are.
I try to do better at exercising when I can, but I still like a bag of Cheetos if it's in front of me. So, that being said, we're all human. I would say the big part about entrepreneurship, going for it, passive income, real estate investing is 80% that mindset, what you just mentioned. And so when it comes down to building the confidence of saying the deck's stacked against me, I've never had money before. I've never been a successful entrepreneur before. If you say I've never had someone say that I was a top producer or anything in life. If someone's ever been in that position, what it comes down to is we have to learn how to shift our what we believe about ourselves. So this is what I would call state
Hmm.
management, and it's the famous Tony Robbins statement, the quality of your life is really the quality of your emotions. And so if we start to take a step back and assess and understand our paradigm and perception of life and how we view things, we start to realize that how we view things is really how we emotionally react to the information we receive. So for an example, if I'm sitting on my couch and I have a bag of Cheetos that are sitting in front of me, I could use the frame of reference in my mind that, 20 out of the past 23 times I've grabbed that bag of Cheetos, and I can use the emotional feedback that, oh, here it is again, those Cheetos. Well, gosh, I've done it. I've always done it in the past. I guess I'll just do it again. Who cares? I'm going to eat the bag of Cheetos. It doesn't matter. I'm going to do it. Or there's those 3 times I didn't do it. In my head, I could capture those 3 times. Maybe one of those 3 times I said, I'm having a great day today. I went swimming. I went on a walk. I don't need those Cheetos today. Or maybe the second time I didn't grab the Cheetos, where I was having a great day with my kid. I'm really looking forward to an evening activity with him. I'm not going to eat the bag of Cheetos because I'm excited about that. Or maybe the third thing was, I just started a new diet plan that my doctor and my nutritionist shared with me. I'm really excited about it. I'm on the right path. And what we need to do in those moments is we need to remember our emotional response for those 3 out of 23 times where we said no to the bag of Cheetos. And that's how we get ourselves off the couch to do the things that we are uncomfortable doing. Is we have to change how we believe and perceive those things.
Yeah. And it's kind of a rewiring. It's like, okay, this might be emotionally uncomfortable, but okay, we've survived it once. We've
Correct.
survived it second time, third time. Now I have proof. Like even if I have to do an uncomfortable phone call that maybe in my head I frame as this is uncomfortable. But then I'm like, okay, now I've done
Yes.
this 5 times, 50 times. I've been rejected 50 times. I still
Yes.
haven't died, you know? Uh, and I think this is actually the powerful learning going through sales in the early part of a career. There's so much rejection, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm still alive,
Yep.
I'm still humming, and it's like building that muscle, being able to go through rejection and not stopping. I think this is already such a major chunk of like, okay, I'm still alive, just learning that life, these things that we emotionally think are so burdensome or so tough, okay, they don't kill you,
Absolutely.
let's move on, lost a deal, okay, let's move on, lost some
Absolutely.
money, let's move on.
The funny part about life is whatever you believe about yourself, you're right. That's whatever you believe about yourself. If you believe that you're a great person, you're right. If you believe you're a bad person, you're right. If you believe you're a confident person, you're right. If you believe you're great at sales, you're right. Because it's all about what we choose to believe about ourselves.
Mhm. Yeah, it's those days where, you feel like everything is going your way. You go out and
Yes,
things are really going your way because it's how you started out. But if you already walk out the front door and you're timid and anxious and the world responds to that, I'm like, okay, here we
absolutely.
go. Nothing
And
is working today.
it's not
And
as
yeah.
if it's perfect. We all have those days, even myself. I have my days of anxiety, of fear, of sometimes I'm just at that struggle moment where I don't want to take the next step because it's something I've never done before. But what I do is I remind myself of those 3 out of 23 times. I say, has there is there any evidence in the past that I've accomplished something new that I've never accomplished before? Is there evidence that I've graduated to a new level in the past on an activity that maybe I was once incredibly intimidated by? It could be as simple as, did I go from high school to college, and were there certain steps that I had to make that happen? Were there certain steps that I had to make on a very hard class in school that I overcame? These aren't things that have to be significant in life. We just need to find the evidence of something that means a lot to us internally to get us over that hurdle. Because I am a believer that we can do absolutely anything if we believe it, number one, and number two, are willing to take the action, and number three, do the action on a consistent basis.
Mm. Yeah, one-offs don't count. It needs to
Yes,
be consistent, and like you need to keep moving direction. You need to
yes,
keep moving in
absolutely.
the same direction. Yeah.
Why
So
real
why real
estate?
estate?
Well, I love real estate and I love lots of other investments. So we could talk for 3 hours if you really want. Real estate I love for several different reasons. Number 1, it's not going anywhere. It's it's something that has been here thousands of years. It's something that will continue to be here in the future. Here's one fact. They're not building or creating any more land. There's only a finite amount of land available on the entire planet. You might as well get a piece of it, number 1. Number 2, even if there's recessions, good or bad and different, yes, real estate can go up and go down, but people always need a place to live. You will never have economies of scale where are citizens that are homeless. Someone needs a place to live, whether it's a single family home, an apartment building, a triplex, a duplex, a quad, a mobile home park, an RV park. Everyone needs a place to live, and guess what? Everyone finds a place to live. Number 3, the tax benefits are outrageous. It's absolutely absurd how you can make so much money and keep so much of it. It's so impactful to me. It's mind-boggling that other people don't take advantage of it. It's life-changing tax benefits. It's it triples a typical income of a W-2 earner, just even if the numbers were identical.
Yeah. It's also that, you know, a lot of people, when they first look at it, they're like, "Oh, this is too good to be true." I had this conversation with a friend of mine, and he has rental units, and I was like, "Hey, if you participate in this multifamily investment, you can take that against the income of your rental
Hmm.
units, the bonus depreciation." And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And I'm like, "You read the tax code, man. You don't need to believe me. Just go and educate yourself and do it on your own." And he wouldn't even do that because he thought it's too good to be
Hmm.
true. He's like, I'm like, "Man, it works. It's how
Yep.
we've done it the last couple
Yeah.
of years. It's legal. Like, why wouldn't you at least educate yourself?" And he literally is like, "Ah, it's
Wow.
too good to be
Well,
true."
you know, one man's trash is another man's treasure would be what I would say, and there's a benefit. And to your point, you said if it's not a loophole, it's the tax code. And I love that you mentioned the bonus depreciation because let's use the term depreciation. There's a lot of people out there that say, why is it that there's so many of these well-off people that pay no money in taxes? And we hear this argument in the economies everywhere in the world. The vast majority of it comes down to real estate investing and depreciation. And some people would say, well, in the United States, it's because of this thing called depreciation. But depreciation, and I am not a tax expert, so I'll just say disclaimer on this show, I'm not a tax expert. My understanding is that there is a form of depreciation in the majority of all modern advanced countries in the world. Some form of that tax benefit exists in the majority of tax codes worldwide. So if it's something available to most, why would we not take advantage of it? Why not? It's there. And it's there for a reason. The reason it's there, and I'll stop talking about it after this, it's to incentivize people to improve and maintain the quality of housing for the population. If it doesn't exist, there's no incentive.
Yeah. Yeah, let's say all being equal. Like, actually, if you take the leverage out of real estate, if you take the tax benefits out of real estate,
No,
it's not a great investment.
I can make more on business.
Yeah. And this is why, for example, this week I had a conversation with a friend, and he's like, "Why aren't we covering more parking lots with solar panels? It's a no-brainer." I'm like, "No, it's not a no-brainer because those businesses have a higher return on their money if they keep it in their business versus their parking lot solar
Yeah,
panels."
absolutely. Because it's not just about income. You have to look at your tax benefits and you have to assess the full picture. Businesses look at tax benefits and cash flow. Those are the big things. And really, it's also forecasting the future too. What are your next 3 to 5 years going to look like as well?
Yeah. Actually, pointing at it, like if you were to give a major tax credit for putting solar panels in your parking lot, that would happen really quickly. Then if you give corporations a sizable tax cut, and they were like, this would, and this is incentive structure. This is how it works. And the only people complaining about it are the ones not using it because
Hmm.
they think there's loopholes, there's schemes, people are cheating. Meanwhile, the scrutiny on high taxpayers is a lot higher than on the mid-sized or small taxpayers. And there is no way for them to, like, yes, some of them might have offshore accounts or so. That's a different name. But I think generally the majority of real estate investors keep their money in the
Yeah.
United States, earn their money in the United States, and are legally able to mitigate taxes because of the incentive structure
Yes,
given by the government.
absolutely. It's given and provided by the government for the right reasons, though. And there seems to be sometimes a misaligned concept around that. But we have to remember how important real estate really is for an economy. Yes, affordability is absolutely a concern and something that everyone needs to focus on doing better with. And I think there's lots of great things we can do with recreating, more affordable C housing type for blue collar workers that's currently not being produced right now in multifamily. It's a lot of A luxury style property. I think if there's a shift in anything, that could be a great way to improve that. But in real estate, it exists to help improve the quality of real estate that's currently out there right now without depreciation tax benefits. who is going to improve their properties? Who is going to go ahead and maintain their properties and continue to do the renovations in those properties and invest in those assets? Who's going to continue to develop and build new apartment buildings and new houses? If those tax benefits wouldn't exist, if people were concerned about the housing supply right now and the shortage, imagine if there was no depreciation, you would have a complete stoppage in new
Yeah.
development.
I think it's very interesting. Between the interest rates and where we are in the cycle, we're already seeing a lot less new inventory coming to market. We're on the tail end of a push for development, but over the next
Yep,
18 months, that will kind of phase out. And then people will be really looking for new development. And without further incentives, it's not going to come unless the interest rates maybe
correct.
go further down
Yes.
again.
You're absolutely right. So I think the approach here that everyone should have when we're looking at real estate is one, it's accessible to all from, an investment standpoint and a cash flow perspective. Two, let's work together for solutions and not, point fingers at it's a landlord's fault or it's, the government's fault. I don't think it's really anyone's particular fault. It's the economics of the market. It's in these housing supply shortages. I know this isn't 100% of the topic of cash flow and financial independence, but these are worldwide challenges. These are not just challenges in the United States of America. So what it says is that these are things that we have all identified worldwide as potential challenges, but these are also things that we can share ideas with and we can all work together. And the great thing about investing in real estate and why I love the idea of financial independence through real estate is that you get to be a leader of those ideas and you also get to appreciate both sides of those ideas because the small guy or gal who may be sitting at home right now, they're on their W-2 job and they're saying, I wish I could get in real estate, but I don't have the money. That person, when they do get the time to do it, and by the way, you don't need money to get into real estate, another conversation we can talk about here. Once you get into real estate and you have some of that success, you are the best advocate to help create the long-term solution worldwide for housing affordability because you've been on both sides. You've been on the sides of I can't afford my rent or it's too pricey or this house is too expensive. But you've been on the other side where you can see why it's so expensive. Why is rent higher? Because there is a why. It's not a profit driven why. There are cost containments and reasons that happen.
Hmm.
But the best people to make an impact are the people like you and I who have been in the shoes of the many of the listeners here because we get to be the ones to say, I've been there. It was me, but I have solutions because I've seen it all.
Yeah. And sometimes you would be very surprised what kind of expenses come up in the cycle of providing housing. It's like, I mean, obviously we have
Yes.
extreme insurance rate hikes that we've seen in the last
Yes.
couple of years, and other odd expenses where you're just like, where is this coming from? But it's still part of the game. It's still
Absolutely.
part of providing housing, and I think it's best understood from both sides. It's like, okay, what is it like to be a tenant? And actually, I think this makes for a great world. Like if you think of it from a societal standpoint, if people are renters as well as landlords and they understand it's a more of give and take. Usually when there's camps between like the always renters and never owners and the other one, then it gets to these extremes where both sides kind of
Yep.
calcify in their corner rather than having understanding for each other. Okay, I understand you operate and you have LPs and that you have to report to and you have a mortgage to take care of and then expenses. I understand all of that. I understand this, it justifies a certain rent, but we also want a reasonable kind of living situation here. So can you please take care of these things for us because you're the landlord? And then you can have a reasonable conversation that is not just driven by expectation and
Absolutely. You,
entitlement.
you hit it perfect. It's when you've seen both sides, you are best qualified to have those common ground conversations or at least have an open mind. And You are 100% correct about, the additional costs from, landlords that a lot of people don't see, like the tax increases and the insurance increases, because as property values go up and cost of living inflation goes up, it's not that landlords keep the profit. That means that your city entities and your state entities get to increase their taxes so they get more tax revenue, which benefits obviously your public works and your local cities and your areas for those improvements. But then with cost of inflation also means increased cost of labor and materials for insurance claims and natural disasters. And then the insurance companies will say, well, gosh, cost of lumber from COVID sure made cost of repairing and replacing buildings more expensive, with increased storms, etc., that's going to go up. And so, yes, it's all relative. I think the best message we could
Hmm.
say for people that are straddling both sides is as long as we work together towards that common goal, we can find a solution.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the funny part is, just last week, lumber came down significantly again, and then I went to Home Depot, and Home Depot hasn't quite adjusted to the pre-COVID lumber prices, and I'm
Of
sure
course not.
insurance underwriting hasn't either. It's like there's good reason the
Of
insurance are
course.
cash flowing nicely now. They're
Yes.
they're recovering their losses, and they will not
Oh,
adjust those
definitely
numbers
not.
anytime
No.
soon.
But here's the one constant that I always hang my hat on are really two things. Is one, real estate's always going to go up in the long term. It always will. So will real estate values, so will rent, so will wages, so will income. So even if there's a disparity at certain periods of time in the economy, wages do go up and they do catch up. It's just the natural progression of things. So in time, everything does always balance.
Hmm. Yeah, even I guess when people say it goes up, I try to think more from the value of my money goes down, because I think it's a slightly like for example during COVID, when there was a lot of money flushing through the system, interest rates were low, money was being printed, and then it looks like the real value of things goes up.
Yeah,
But given the extreme inflation that came with it, there's also this feeling like, okay, I have more dollar signs here. Like it looks like there's more money, but like I would say the real value of that
correct.
hasn't quite come to par. Even so, I think on a long enough time horizon, it is roughly the same. People keep arguing that real term wages are lacking, which is true. I think if you are an asset owner, you
Sure.
always have an
Yeah.
advantage versus a wage earner. Wages have historically always been lacking because it's the last thing
Yeah.
in the entire chain that gets adjusted after everything got
Yes.
expensive and so on. So, but again, that's a choice to be part of an equity stack
Correct.
or
And that's why
be in
we're
the
both here
wage.
today. I agree.
Yes,
I absolutely agree. And
exactly.
I love that you said it's a choice because there are so many listeners here that may be listening and saying, I feel like I can never get ahead. I feel like I'm trapped in my circumstance. They may say I have kids, I have a mortgage, I have obligations, and these are all very fair and reasonable statements for an adult to say in today's world. But it's all a choice still, because there's two ways to create passive cash flow in real estate, or really any. It's two leverage opportunities. It's time or money. It's one or the other. Those are your two answers. If someone's stuck and they say, "What do I do next?" You need to either leverage time or leverage money. You can leverage money by passively investing as a limited partner, like you mentioned, as an LP or a joint venture partner. You're still active with voting rights, but you may have someone operating your investment. Or you may say, well, I don't have a lot of money, otherwise I wouldn't be here. A lot of people may say that. Totally fair. Everyone's got a little bit of time. I know some people are going to say, I have multiple kids, I have things that go till 10 p.m. at night. But I'm going to always counter and say, have you managed your time on a daily basis, 30-minute blocks from the day you wake up, time you wake up till you go to bed? You know, if I were to look at your calendar, what would I see? Are you measuring Your exercise breaks, your walking breaks, your phone calls, your personal life after you're done with working at 6 p.m., how long it is you eat dinner, how long it is for your kid to take a bath, how long it is that you watch Netflix at night, your favorite TV show. Do you have to watch your favorite TV show? That's a choice. That is a choice. Same thing with the weekends. Are you willing to do side work on the weekends? Are you willing to research real estate? Are you willing to meet with investors? See, these are all choices. And what a lot of people don't think about when they are looking at passive income and goals is they have to identify where they want to go, but they have to determine ahead of time, and you know this, the price they're willing to pay to get it. And that's what a lot of people
Yeah.
miss in their journey.
And I think this is such an important thing to point at, because in the same way that only a few people are willing to actually look at, for example, the tax code and incentive structure, and then you just basically play by the rules. Success has a little bit of a similar. It's like, okay, where do you want to invest your time, and what are you comfortable with stretching towards to? And at any given society, you will always find a similar ratio. You will have a certain part on the lower end of the income spectrum, then you will extreme outliers on the top, and then you have like that average in the middle. And it's always like that 5%, 5 to 10% of people only in any given society that actually can live life on their terms, that have reached
Yep.
some level of financial independence or freedom. And it's because they elect themselves, and they're willing. It's not because they've all inherited, which is certainly not true in the United States, given that 80+% of people actually are self-made. And and then it's also that aspect of like, okay, you actually have to be willing to do it. And like weekends, what you have 52 weekends,
Yes.
that's 104 days. Like if you spend all of those on Netflix,
Yes.
that's pretty
Absolutely.
substantial.
I don't know if this was a YouTube short or something I read somewhere, but I believe for someone to become a top 5% expert at anything, you have to just spend 100 hours consistently on that task. I think it was 100 hours. And maybe it's to become a true expert of maybe top 1% of the field. It's like, there, maybe there's I heard a 10,000 hour one for something else, but 100 hours, think about that. In anything you did in life, if you spent 100 consecutive hours studying gym exercises, would you become a gym aficionado and become very good at it? Probably. If you spent 100 hours practicing how to make spaghetti and meatballs, would you be really good at making spaghetti and meatballs? Probably. Would you be,
Hell yeah.
better than one of the people on the Food Network? Maybe not, but you'd be probably the best in your neighborhood.
There's one caveat here, which is you need to be reiterating or improving in those 100 hours. You can't just spend 100
Correct.
hours on it.
You know what that comes down to? That comes down to having the internal need of growth. Because the other part of financial independence, and this is I think this is where a lot of people start getting obsessed with personal development, because for me that is an obsession since becoming financially independent. It's the need to always have to challenge yourself. And it's very much like, again, I don't even exercise a ton, but it is like going to the gym. For you to hit a new level at the gym, you have to always test your muscles to some maximum level. You can't overdo it, otherwise you tear a muscle, but you have to challenge yourself enough
Mm-hmm.
to get physical growth. In life and in financial independence, it's the same thing. You can't make the best spaghetti and meatballs dish over 100 hours if you're not stretching yourself to add one additional ingredient. Spend an extra 5 minutes of preparation the next day, another 5 minutes of preparation the following day. Maybe you're spending 30 minutes a day on reading new recipes, right? Like, it's that type of improvement we must always be striving to do, because that's not only the secret sauce of financial independence, growth, and challenge yourself, that's the secret sauce of happiness. If we look at everything in life that most people have achieved, we have to overcome adversity to achieve something. Happiness, if you think of everything you've accomplished in your life, is usually correlated with some adverse moment that happened beforehand.
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine you go to a bar and the girl is not giving you
Yeah.
a hard time.
It would be
It doesn't feel the
boring,
same. I'm
right?
just kidding.
We all want a thrill of a challenge. It's funny. We hate it when it happens, but we love it when it's done. We hate it when we're
Yeah.
in the moment. We're going through it. We're like, this sucks. Why did I sign up for this? Whatever it is. It could be a family event even. It could be a job, it could be anything. But once you get through that event, you go, I made it. I'm proud of myself.
Like a marathon or
Yeah.
a Tough Mudder, one of
Yeah.
those crazy
Exactly.
races, where you get electrified and like dig through the mud and stuff, and
Yes.
then so
Exactly.
proud of yourself. I find this, and I love that you brought up the state, because I think if you want to manage anything in your life, you want to manage your state, because everything comes downstream from what your state is like. It will determine
Yes.
how you think and how you feel. So if you can understand the patterns of state and break them when you see something coming in, like I give an example. We had lunch earlier. My wife felt a little bit down. I was like, okay, let's kick in some music. And for five
That's
minutes,
great.
we just danced. And then she felt great and she went straight back to her desk. She could have also chosen to lay on the couch for 10 minutes and she would have gotten up
Yes.
groggy again, probably. That's the beginning of state management. It's like, okay, I'm feeling this coming up.
Yes.
How can I mitigate it? Like, how can I
Absolutely.
kick into another gear?
And that is so important for the individuals that feel stuck or trapped on that couch. They're like, I don't know if this is for me. They may ask themselves that question. What it really comes down to is when you get anxiety and fear, because those are really the two things that stop people, anxiety and fear of the unknown. When that emotion, floods your brain and your body and you feel it and you're getting sweaty and uncomfortable, what are we telling ourselves at those moments to reprogram that feeling, reprogram that thought? If I get anxiety that, I have to do a phone conversation around real estate, and if I have never done it before, oh my gosh, what am I going to say? Just have to frame that thought in my head and say, I'm excited about doing a real estate call later today because I get an opportunity to learn something new on something I've never tried before. It's the same exact thing that I have to do. It's just a frame of how I changed it in
Mm-hmm.
my head.
Yeah. And it's really it takes quite some understanding to like see those patterns in yourself. I'm like, okay, this mental pattern isn't serving me. I
Yes.
need to reframe this. I need to kick this out. I need to kick this in, because this will get me to the life I want, and this won't. And and I think this is where people get stuck. It's where it
Yes,
gets
I
tricky.
agree with you. It it it's very hard at first when you've never dealt with that concept, but you don't have to reinvent your entire life all at once to try it. You can take small steps in small instances and really just focus on different areas one at a time. We can use the example of, you know, teenage boys that have never asked a girl out when they're in high school. They've, they've never done it before, right? They have lots of anxiety of doing it. But once they take care of it the first time, all of a sudden that anxiety level may still be there on the next time, but it won't be as much. And so,
Hmm. I think it function of volume. Just don't count 1, 2, 3, 5 to 10. Just like by default, it's
yes,
like do it
do
a
it.
hundred times.
Yes, I love that you said that. The the yes, do it 100 times, because what I love about sales is it gives you that concept of measuring effort. And when I think about measuring effort, it's if you do something over a period of time, what will be my return on that effort? So if you do something 100 times, if a boy in high school asks 100 girls out, maybe the first 10 all say no, but then he starts getting more confidence and more experience. He may have 50 girlfriends by the time he's done, right? Maybe. But same thing, but the same thing applies in real
Maybe.
estate. The same thing applies in passive income. The same thing of it applies for the aspiring entrepreneur who've never started their business, that says, I just want to file my first LLC, or how do I get money from an investor? I just need to talk to the first investor. The answer is always right in front of us. Talk to the first investor, talk to the first real
Mm.
estate professional, make the first phone call. If you do it 100 times, what would happen?
I remember our very first company when we were raising money, and we spoke to investors, and they were like, "How many investors have you spoken to?" And we were like, "Yeah, I don't know." It was a low number back then, maybe even less than 10. And they're like, "You need to speak to hundreds." They're like, they had a completely different understanding of volume than, and for us, like, oh wow, we just need to, like, the volume that they were thinking of for success
Yes,
was completely different
yes.
than ours. Like,
What I love about what you said, your volume of success compared to theirs were just completely different, is great, because I do feel a lot of people try to understand all the volume up front before they ever take the action. And that's the big advice I have for so many people that listen to your show, of becoming financially independent and how do you do that, what do you do, is rather than think about all the things of how do you do this and how do I do that and what do I do it and why do I do it, just take the at bats now, and it's through your at bats that you learn the volume. Because you spoke to 10 investors, you had to speak to the 10th investor to all of a sudden get the information from the 10th investor that said, hey, you need to talk to 100. But you would have never
mhm.
known that without talking to the first 10.
Yeah, and maybe the first five were only to know that you're
Yes.
speaking to the wrong kind of investor,
Yes.
that you have an idea that doesn't apply to
Exactly.
their strategy. And then the next four, you're like more there. And then the 10th one tells you you're
Exactly.
not doing the right volume. And at each of those are learning
Yes.
stages that were crucial for maybe
Yes.
at 99
It's
success.
anything you do in life. The first few times you're going to suck at it. And guess what? It's okay. It's Does a professional baseball player, does he hit a home run in the very first at bat that he's ever had in his entire life? Does the professional soccer player score a goal in the very first kick that he ever has towards the goalie? No. They suck. And they suck bad, and they suck for many years sometimes, but they become great over time because they practice, they do the reps. They do the reps once they learn how many reps to do, but they never know how many reps to do without starting to do the reps.
Yeah, I love that. Well, Brad, where can people connect with you? Like, find you online?
Great questions. Yep. So there's two sources that you can look me up. You can obviously message me on Facebook, Bradley Bunin. That is actually my personal Facebook for now. It change in the future. Uh, I also have a YouTube channel. It's Money Mind with Brad, or you can type in at Bradley Bunin on YouTube. And I also have an Instagram as well. If you type in my name, I will pop up there as well.
And we'll also make sure to add all
Awesome.
of those to the show notes. And then one of my favorite questions is like, what do you consider a life well lived?
Ooh, a life well lived. A life well lived to me is, I'm going to say three things. I'll see if I actually answer this in three things. My first thought is three things. One, a life on my terms, both in terms of the time of how much time I spend on things, where I spend my time on things, and whom I spend my time with. Say number one. Number
Hmm.
two, who am I helping and who am I serving? What impact am I leaving on this world? Once you become financially independent, people think that you just want to, swim in gold coins and, I don't know, live in yachts and stuff. I mean, yeah, all that sounds great, but your desire and your need is really, how do you impact humanity and other people? We get fulfilled more by doing that than anything else, helping others. Number three,
Yeah.
being impactful with my close circle of personal relationships that I have. Helping, thousands and millions is great, but be impactful at your home base too. Yes, I love Scrooge McDuck.
I just thought it's funny the way you said it, that this is the people's idea of
I
financial
know
freedom,
that feels good for probably a weekend or two, maybe a few weeks in another country, but then eventually you're going to say, "Oh, well, what do I do next?"
Yeah. I think what you mentioned is like you want to serve, you want to have impact, you want to have like, because otherwise I think it gets really boring real quick. And it's also going back to the beginning of the conversation. There needs to be strive,
Yes.
there needs to be growth, and I think there's enough statistics around how miserable lottery winners get, because they kind of get dislocated out of their strive, and now they're suddenly like, okay, everything
Yes.
is taken care of, and now
I
what?
also feel like a lot of times lottery winners, I'm sure there are lottery winners that have had to fight very hard for things. But what's missing when someone gets access to cash for nothing is the grind they had to get to the cash. And it's the fight. That's the growth. What people forget in life is the growth is the journey. It's the fight of what you're doing right now. It's raising your kids. It's building careers. It's building your wealth. It's designing your dream. It's the actual fight of it every day is what matters.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's the same, like, muscle tear down at the gym that you mentioned. It's like you have to
Yes.
go in and work it. But the interesting thing is, so I was looking at, for example, health clinic, longevity clinics here in the area, and I noticed there's two approaches to that. And the more common one is treatments that don't require effort by the client. It's like the pill, it's the shot, it's like the making you
Yep.
look better, surgery. Like people will pay a lot more for liposuction than they will for
Yep.
you to train them for a year. Even so, the outcome of one makes you feel amazing after a year, and the other one will maybe you feel great for 15 minutes because you look better, but your
You're
underlying
correct.
health hasn't
Yes.
changed.
Because you're not giving your body the personal growth it also needs. Because growth isn't just a value add for our life, it's a value add for our mind, it's a value add for our physical body, it's also a value add for our emotional state.
Yeah, I like that. And I think it's a great line to end up on. Well, Bradley, thank you so much for giving us the time and sharing all your insights. And I think we hit up on so much valuable things that really can shift somebody's trajectory
Awesome.
if they pick up
Happy
on
to
it.
help any of your listeners. If they have any questions, they can reach out directly to me.
Thank you for joining us at The Path to Wealth. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Check out our upcoming guests and be sure to share it with all your friends and family that want to take their life to the next level of wealth.